Fantastic. Thank you. I think that about answers all our questions, but
Good.
I'm kidding. I wrote a few down anyway just to go through here. So, yeah, and I see our time seems particularly abbreviated. You know, one of the things you touched on briefly, but it's a major point of questioning in all this, is the cost benefit in terms of the overhead costs, the computational and hence monetary costs of operating the blockchain with respect to the problem being solved. And I'm going to conflate that with another one of my questions here, just for expediency, which is, given that setup, what is the most impactful problem that it's going to solve, particularly in the near term, four of which I hear a lot of conversation around, including in your presentation: identity, and I guess privacy is the flip side of that, delivery, the transaction of the impression,
Agreed.
Fraud,
Agreed.
and something I don't know if I heard you talk about, but the payment float,
Financial reconciliation.
Right.
Yep.
So given the cost-benefit analysis, what is the shortest path to adoption?
So I think it's going back to what can we solve quickly. And right now there's a lot of process or hard things. So if you think about processing millions and thousands of millions of impressions through a log file that would then go through blockchain, it's really server hard. You think about doing that across, let's say, AppNexus or something that's billions and trillions and quadrillions of records, right? And so the issue with that is that blockchain isn't that fast. It's not that fast yet because it's distributed. We're working on that issue, but what it does is it then makes the processes hard and then the cost much higher. So my belief, and the easy solve there, is to do the level of analysis at a higher level. So that's where you do start with, let's say, I/O management, or you start with identity management at a individual level and not through all possible permutations of the cookie. So what you do is you start working backwards, and then what happens is as the blockchain gets more efficient and as you have trust in the system, everything becomes cheaper. And the reason why that is that you don't have consensus rules, you don't have to do the voting, you don't have to rely on some of those more manual levers. Everything becomes more efficient, so the costs drop very dramatically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as much as any of it at this point. So I guess I probably have time for just one more question, so I'm going to try to fold another couple here together. But timing. Well, I'd frame it this way: interoperability and the cold start problem. Like, how viable is this as a solution to a lot of these problems in integration with the existing stack? If some people are doing some of these kinds of transactions in a blockchain model and others are doing it in the current spaghetti monster model,
yep.
How do we interoperate those, and what's the timing of all this having a real impact for our industry?
So we're working on this now, and obviously I just told you that we're at the impetus of this, right? We're just beginning, and we're just learning how to build and scale. The interesting thing is that blockchain can be built in iterations, and in fact, it's an actually very agile process. You don't have to have all the pieces built, and that's why a chain mechanism works here, because you can then have pieces of the puzzle enter in later. Now, they won't obviously have the same processing and the same value and the same protections that the blockchain will, so they'll still suffer some of the same issues. But what's good about it is that you're getting some of your governance in place a priori, right? And so by starting somewhere and by having, let's say, your DSP talk to your DMP and starting that process, which then allows you to also then entertain the ad server, that is easier because it's a set mechanism and it's a transactional method with your IOs that can be implemented pretty quickly.
All right, well, I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more about this on this stage next year and in between, so.
So I think that you said this in our 30 minutes last week, is that digital has now had 20 years to get expressed, right? And then now programmatic has had, about 10 years to be understood. I believe that blockchain is that same thing. So right now we're at the 20 years of our digital understanding and 10 years of our programmatic. I think now we're at our first year, let's say, of our blockchain understanding.
Exciting stuff. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Andrew, you had me at your promise to eliminate discrepancies.
What's that?
You had me at your promise to eliminate discrepancies.
No, I tried.
Okay, all right.